Hi, welcome back. This image on screen now shows us where we left things at the end of the first video. We produced our first render, kind of a white card render. So we're going to take this further now and start adding materials which look much more realistic. So we'll just close this. Okay, so we're back at 3D Studio Max and I'm going to open the file where it was left. Okay, so end part 1 and open. Okay, so the screen here was sitting in this kind of clay appearance, which is okay just for seeing the model. Okay, now we're going to add much more realistic materials to this, which use what are called bitmaps. They use pictures. So let's have a look at the folder where these pictures are. Okay, so we've got a folder here called maps inside the project folder. Okay, and then there's a limited palette of materials here that we're going to use. Okay, the majority of them are to do with the stonework for the building. There's some relating to the vegetation that we'll add in the third video, and we've got the bronze that goes on the statue, and the strange looking picture here which is used to make the water look bumpy. Okay, so anything that's dark is projected, sorry, is depressed, it makes it go downwards, and anything that's light makes it go upwards. So you'll end up with a very lumpy looking texture which really suits water. Okay, so some of the pictures have got two versions. Okay, if I take this one first. Okay, so this is what we call the diffuse map. So this is the general coloration of the material. It also might be termed the base color map. Okay, along with that we've got something much simpler. Okay, a black and white version which is to help us define the paneling. So anything that's black gets pushed in. So the joints between the marble will appear to be pressed in. It gives it a 3D appearance. Okay, so we need 3D Studio needs told where this folder is so that it can pick up the pictures when it needs to. Okay, and this is especially important when you go back to a file. Okay, everything will work fine when you're setting up the scene. It's when you go back to the file it will say, I can't find this picture, I can't find this picture, etc. Okay, so in 3D Studio, first thing we'll do this time is go to Customize, Configure User Paths, External Files, Add. To browse for the folder, go into the folder, and then click Use Path. If there was other folders in here that I wanted it to go into, I could add subpaths. But single click on Use Path will be okay. Okay, so it's added it to the bottom of the list. Okay, and it goes through these in order, so it's not going to find my pictures till it's looked everywhere else first. But it does that very quickly. Okay, just watch out that you don't put the same picture, the same named picture in different folders, because it will find it first before it gets to the one you want. So okay. Okay, so most of the work in this session is going to be done in the materials editor. So let's kick the materials editor into life. Okay, this was our white initial material. Okay, what we'll do next is create a glass material, and we don't need to necessarily copy this one. Okay, I'm just going to go to the next ball along, rename this to glass. Okay, we can use a preset for this. Okay, and if you go for glass thin geometry, because we modeled just a single 3D face in our glazing. glass thin geometry. Doesn't look much like glass until you add a background to it. Okay, and then it's shiny, transparent. It's got a bit of coloration to it, but it's still very transparent. Okay, now if the glass material is easy to find, as you can see here, you can drag a material onto it. So let's try that with the glazed trans. So just drag the glass straight onto the object. Okay, now we're a bit stuck now because we can't see the materials going on. Now that should be showing up really as glass now. So the clay appearance isn't really helping us now. So let's change this. If we right click it, we'll go for a flat color. Okay, and there you can see the glass showing up. The majority of the model is still white, so it's a bit awkward to deal with. So that's a very simple material, it doesn't require mapping. We've got some other materials that don't require mapping. Okay, the chrome metal. Okay, so let's do those. Let's get these ones that don't require mapping out of the way first. Okay, and then it'll leave us the more complicated ones to do later. Okay, we can change this material into the chrome. Okay, now we'll call it chrome. It's really polished stainless steel, but that's a bit too much to type. Okay, we'll use a preset again, and the nearest material to that is silver. So we'll use silver. Again, for reflective materials, put in a background so you can see it behave. Very shiny. Okay, now the chrome is going onto multiple materials, and some of the objects are quite small and difficult to pick. So you'd be wiser to select by name. So come up to this icon, select by name, and we're looking for 3 objects. Column stainless steel. Now hold your control key and add in window frame vertical, window frame horizontal. Okay, there isn't any other materials to take that, so we click OK. We've now got control of 3 objects. It says here in 3 objects selected. This time we'll assign the material to the selection. Okay, now as we add these materials, let's hide the objects. So go to the display panel and hide selected. We've done the glass already. Let's pick the glass object. Just click here, it finds window glaze trans, hide selected. Okay, so as we create things, we'll drop them away from the model. Okay, something for the ground. This time I will copy the white material. So just drag it across. Let's rename it to ground. Okay. We want to make sure we've not got any shininess, any reflectivity here. So check your advanced mode. And we are showing reflections here. So let's switch these off. Reflections 0. Okay, we should do that with the white as well. Okay. We want the advanced materials, so material mode, advanced, reflections 0. A white painted wall doesn't reflect an image. Okay, but this one's going to be changed. We're going to change the color of this. So the base color, let's make it a sandy brown material. So just make it a bit gloomier. Okay, it's a pretty big object. We can drag straight onto the object. Okay, and then hide selected. Oops, that was a bit of an error there. I didn't pick the object first, so click on the ground, hide selected. Okay, the roof here, under the soffit is going to stay white, so you can select that, hide selected. We want something dark for the roof, So let's copy the ground and call it rooftop. Okay, a simple dark grey for this. To get grey or black, drag the colour marker to the bottom. Okay, that takes away any colour information and you're just left with a black to white slider. So a fairly dark tone. Okay, we can drag that straight onto the roof. That didn't go. Let's try the sign instead. That's better. And hide selected. Okay, there's a few more white objects in the scene that we could get rid of. It'd be easier to see this in an axonometric type view. So let's leave this one as top, leave this one as the side view, the left view, but we'll change the front view to what's called a user view. And to do that, if you click in the front view, okay, and get the orbit command and stay inside the middle circle, click and drag, and we can use the middle mouse button to center that. Okay, instead of wireframe, let's change this to flat color, but also add the edged faces. Okay, so the partitions and the door frame and the door leaf in here can all be switched off. So we'll select those by name. Okay, so select by name. We could also do hide by name. Okay, so it looks through the list of the objects that are still in the scene and lets you pick some of these out. So let's take the door frame, door leaf and partition. Okay, and hide those. Okay, so we're losing objects as we go now. Okay, right, we've got a glass material still to do here. This is the glazing that is not see-through, so it's frosted. So let's take the next material down, we'll rename it, and we'll call this frosted glass, and we can use a preset for this. We've got frosted glass. It's physical, okay, which means it's going to behave as if it was solid, but that should be okay for this small amount of glass. Okay, show it with the background so you can see it's kind of see-through, looks pretty believable. And this is going onto a small object here, so probably best to select by name. Okay, and this is window glaze opaque. Okay, assign to selection. Okay, we can see it's semi-transparent now. Hide selected. Okay, now it would be good to get rid of the plinth. The walls are the tricky objects, so let's work on the plinth first and create a fairly basic, slightly reflective material to work for the plinth. So let's take the white material as the basis. Drag this into the next slot. Okay, let's rename this to plinth. Okay, and I'm going to explode I'm going to bring this out so we can see it in a bit more detail. Okay, the first thing we want to do is set up the base color using a picture instead. So at the moment the base color is just white, so we push this forward. Okay, and I'm looking for generic maps, base color. So click the word none. We want to browse for maps, general, bitmap. So you double click bitmap. We need to point it to the folder that we had our maps in. We should only need to do this once and it will remember the location for next time. Go into the maps folder, and the one we're using is Stonework 043. Click open. Okay, now it's repeating the picture of the stonework lots of times. You can see here there's a little bit of a repeat of a pattern. The computer is trying to decide how big the picture should be. Okay, push this panel downwards and take the tick off Use Real World Scale. Now it looks better. We've got a stony, interlocking kind of floor material. Okay, we're one step down in the creation of the material now. We need to go back to the parent. So let's go up to the parent level. Okay, and we're looking for the texture map that goes with that, because this is looking a bit flat. Okay, and that's called the bump map. So to save browsing again, you can copy this into this slot. So just click and drag from one to the other. But make sure you pick copy, otherwise you can't change it. You can't change this one without changing that one. The two of them become linked. Okay, did you see a change appear on the material? It looks a bit rougher now. Okay, it's got a bumpiness there of 0.3. All of these are very subjective. You can decide yourself how rough it wants to be. There's no right or wrong here. Okay, let's put a background in so we can see if there's any reflection. Okay, so there's none at the moment. So we want to add a bit of reflectivity to this. Okay, so we're looking for the reflection setting. Okay, and let's say there's a reflectivity of, I think I had this written down, I better just check my notes. Okay, so let's have a reflection of 0.5. Okay, but we need it to be less rough. Okay, so if we change the roughness, say to 0.5, see if that has any effect. Okay, a bit of a shiny coat to this as well. So 0.15. Okay, there's a bit of a glint showing up in here, but it seems to be less effective in this large preview. I'm going to put a roughness here of 0.2. Okay, we're starting to see the sheen appear properly now. Okay, so we've got a clear coat of 0.15, a roughness of 0.2. We've got a reflection roughness of 0.5. I think we'll increase the reflection here to 1 and see if that changes things dramatically. Not much of a change there. I think we'll go with those settings. Okay, so the material's made. We can always tweak this later, but this now has to go on to the objects. Okay, and we have to tell it how to repeat the picture. Okay, so firstly, drag the plinth material onto the plinth. Okay, let's just make sure it's gone on there. It appears to have. I'll probably check that again actually. I'm going to select the plinth first. Yep, it's showing the materials on there, but nothing's showing up here. Okay, because we haven't told it to show the material in the viewport. So click this button now. Okay, so something's happening now, but we can't see the picture of the stone. That's because it needs what are called mapping coordinates. So to get that, you modify the object. So we're in control of 3D plinth, we modify the object, and you're looking for the UVW map modifier. So scroll the list down, UVW map. Okay, we don't want the computer to decide how it's getting projected, so we take the tick off real world map size. Okay, something's definitely happening now, but it's spread the picture too greatly, and it's also just coming from one direction. You can see the sides of the plinth are all stripy because it's not mapping to the sides as well as the tops. So we want box mapping, and we'll put the numbers in that will represent something a bit more realistic. So length 4.2, width 5.6, height is 4.2 again. Okay, so that's looking a lot more realistic size-wise. Okay, now turn off the mapping, but actually that is switched off at the moment, we're in control of it. Okay, if we wanted to move that mapping, we click this blue tag and watch what happens when we move the gizmo. You can see the pattern shifting. Okay, and this allows you to line it up with the edges of floors or other features. If you make any modification, click this switch again to close it. Okay, now let's say the bench here was made of the same material mapped in the same way. It's much quicker now we've got the material made. So we can click on the bench, the seat travertine, assign the material, but then we can steal the mapping from this object. So you do that by modifying it, add the UVW map modifier, but this time acquire the mapping from the plinth. You select the plinth, acquire absolute gives you control of each of these separately, which is wise. OK. So the two objects now have been mapped in the same way and they can both be hidden. So hide selected, click on the plinth and hide selected. Okay, we'll stop the video at that one, and we don't want to run these too long in case there becomes a problem with the video. So what I'll do, I'll quit it there and we'll save that as end part 2. Okay, so we'll save the file first and then stop the video. So we want to save as end part 2. Okay, I'll stop the video now.